Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being able to rally so quickly. We're just going to give a brief update on the curfew, what the community can expect moving forward, and so we'll hear both from the county executive as well as Chief Aziz.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out this afternoon. As you recall, on September 9th, our county police department began to enforce existing curfew laws, and we announced that we would be doing that for 30 days. The purpose of this curfew, as you may remember, was to engage parents and to more deeply engage our community. What we needed was for our residents to engage with our efforts to reduce crime and to further protect our children. And we did this in the face of escalating crime, and what we found was unfortunately one of the deadliest months in the county's history. So over the past 30 days, the curfew has helped us to succeed with these goals. We've engaged more closely with parents and residents across Prince George's County. In addition, individuals have reached out to us, and we've been really, really thankful for this. We've had so many who have reached out to us saying they have programs, they have ideas, and new ways that we can better engage our families around the effort to keep our young people safe and to cause crime to decline. I want to just today come back before you and to give a very, very sincere thank you to all of our parents, our residents, and our youth who really did step up as we anticipated to help us to make our curfew successful. And ultimately, what we know is that the curfew was a signal. It was a signal to our youth. We wanted them to understand that their safety and their well-being was our top priority. And we know that when they are well, so is the rest of our community. Because of the success that we have had, I wanted to come before you today to announce that I will be extending the curfew for the remainder of this year. But before I talk about the curfew and the results of it, I just want to also say to everyone very clearly that we're not done yet. There is still so much work to do, and so we are still a ways away from our goal, but we are really pleased with what we've seen so far. Now, I never said to anyone, even though I heard from so many that the curfew would solve crime. We would have been remiss if we said that, but that was not what we said. But instead, we knew that the curfew would be a tool that we would add to our toolbox to help us combat the rise in violence that we were seeing, and also to help us to collect additional information and data that we felt would be very helpful to us going forward as we really adjusted our strategies. That said, the really good news today, and I'm so happy to announce that our curfew was successful in many of the ways that we hoped. Not only did we engage parents in our community more deeply, but we were also able to provide greater protection to a number of our youth. What we need going forward is for our community to remain engaged with our crime prevention efforts. We also need our community to remain engaged with our children. This curfew helps our county to build a coalition, and this is what is needed, a coalition of friends, family, parents, and neighbors. We need to be so clear that we are all on the same team where this is concerned, and where stopping crime is concerned, we're one Prince George's. Our curfew also coincided with a substantial improvement in our crime numbers. Compared to curfew hours over the 30-day period immediately before the curfew began, homicides are down overall for the year. The chief is going to talk about this, but over the 30-day period, we saw about a 74% decline. That's from August, what we saw in August, and then what we saw again in September. Overall, compared to the 30-day period before the curfew began and for the entire year, I believe homicides are down about 18%, and the chief will correct me if that's, but about 18%, and that's for all hours of the day. Compared to the previous 30-day period, we saw a 20% drop in overall crime during our curfew hours. We saw a 38% drop in violent crime, a 59% drop in carjackings, and a 50% drop in contact shootings. I decided that this curfew was an important step to help de-escalate the rising crime that we saw among our youth. What we all agreed to was that we surely needed a reset. First and foremost, we made the decision to enforce existing curfew laws to protect our children. And I want to just, again, thank the village here for stepping up and really showing up for our kids. I know that there was a lot of concern, rightfully so, that was expressed by our community about the concern that maybe there may be some negative police interactions with our youth. However, even as we increased patrols and had our officers out canvassing the entire county, I'm really pleased to say, and we did so even in some of our historically challenging areas, our officers tell us that many of our families complied with the curfew and that they actually really jumped in to assist us and to become tremendous partners. So I want to thank not only our community, but I also really want to thank the men and women of the Prince George's County Police Department for their hard work in enforcing this curfew. It was not easy. You all are well aware that our department in so many ways is really stretched thin. But the men and women of this department stepped up and worked overtime and really did do their best, and the results speak for themselves. So we're really pleased about the outstanding job that was done with our department, and we are really pleased that our residents, who I just can't thank enough, they never cease to amaze me, but they did step up. So as I've said all along, the curfew was not to be punitive to our children, but to require parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, and everyone else under the sound of our voice to step up and to do what was necessary to protect our kids. I need to say that maybe almost twice, because my daughter and her friends, they were very displeased. The young people were extremely displeased with me with the curfew, asking why in the world this was necessary. And I say to them it was for their protection. So we saw a decrease in violent crime during curfew hours. We also saw fewer youth on the streets during the hours that they should be at home. During the course of the 30-day curfew enforcement period, our officers interacted with several young people during the curfew hours. They encountered, for example, a girl who was in the car with an armed individual. They also found a boy who shot himself while he was playing with a gun. The police encountered a boy out after curfew while answering a separate call, searching for a person who was breaking into cars. And last, our officers charged a 14-year-old boy with driving without a license after he stole his mother's car and crashed it at 1:30 in the morning. The families of each of these children received written curfew warnings, and they will also receive a follow-up communication offering resources through our Hope in Action Collective. We also had a mother call police, and this mother is, in my book, goes down as a hero, who called the police in the very early days of the curfew, saying that she was involved in a very heated argument with her son, who she was trying to keep in and to help him abide by the curfew. And so this mother went above and beyond to try to keep her son safe, and resulted in an altercation where the police had to be called. But this is the kind of information that we feel is helpful to help us see the areas where we can be more helpful to families. And we want to thank that mother for taking action on her own to help enforce the curfew and to protect the life of her son. If your minor child, 16 or younger, is out between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, or 11:59 and 5 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays, your parents or guardians will be fined. If your young person commits a crime, our police officers will hold them accountable with the appropriate criminal charges, and those officers will also issue fines to their guardians for breaking the curfew. So I again want to thank our village here in Prince George's for coming together to support our young people, and I hope that the focus of this curfew will again be to give new tools to our parents and our community leaders and all of our officers as we seek to protect our children. When we began enforcing the curfew last month, I compared it really to an emergency situation. And everyone's aware that when you call, for example, an ambulance to come and get assistance for a person who's been injured, we often ask everyone else to move aside so that we can tend to that person. We thought the curfew would have a similar effect, send everyone else inside, all the kids inside, and allow us to see who remained and what tools we needed to be able to reach those young people. And so we knew at the time that this occurred, at the time that the curfew was implemented, that we began enforcing it. I want to remind you that carjackings had increased by 52% over last year, and that 69% of all of our curfews were occurring between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And I want to thank also all of our partners and our county agencies who helped us during this period and helped the curfew succeed, including Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, who kept their community centers open during later hours to assist us with anyone who needed those kinds of services. We wanted to offer the space to our youth so that they would have something to do at night if they needed a safe space to gather. And overall, we did not see an increase in attendance during those hours. It appears to us that our youth did not go to those centers, but we were thankful nonetheless that the option was available to keep our children occupied and engaged. Going forward, we will not continue extending hours at the rec centers, but will continue to monitor the need and make adjustments if necessary. Also, we have a number of resources that are available for families and children who are having trouble. For families that need assistance supporting their children and reaching out to them, we're working and continuing to work with our Hope in Action Anti-Violence Project to make resources available. And it's easy. You just call 311 at any time, and we are happy to connect you with the resources that we have available through Hope in Action. We also understand that being a young person can be very hard. So we want to make sure that our youth are able to have open and honest dialogue with their parents. And so we have resources available to assist in this regard as well. Now, before I hand over things to Chief Aziz, I just want to say once again that during the curfew period, crime went down. Our village worked together to make it happen, and to remind everybody never ever to bet against a Prince Georgian. This is a national issue, but the fact is when we work together, we have the power to make a very meaningful difference at the local level. And as I've said all along, this is a team effort. Reducing violent crime requires all of us to come together. You've heard me talk about this before, but there's an African proverb that says, "The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth." I want to thank all of our parents, all of the residents, and all of the youth who got this message these past 30 days. I know crime is top of mind for many of our residents. It is certainly the case with me. And so we're going to keep going with a program that we've found is working. And so, again, we are extending enforcement through the end of the year, and we will reevaluate after the holidays. We've succeeded in building a coalition around this curfew. We've made progress, but there's still so much work to do. Again, this is not a mission accomplished moment. I wanted to say that we still have so much work to do, but we are encouraged by the results that we have seen so far, and we're going to continue to build this coalition and help create long-term success and long-term programs that will help us reduce violent crime and keep our children and keep the rest of our community safe. So thank you so much again. At this time, I'd like to hand over to Chief Malik Aziz, and he will give some updates as well. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive. First, let me start out by saying, well, thank you to the County Executive. We bring these issues to the forefront, but it often takes a courageous individual to step forward to use the platform for something positive and something that is good. And our county executive did just that, recognized the problem at the table, and we moved forth with the juvenile curfew operation. It's not easy for solutions to be found. Those are the challenges, the difficulties of finding solutions. People find it easier to state the problem over and over and over again, but fail many times looking for the amenable solutions to a problem. And we understand that. So I want to thank you, for being at the forefront to do something. And I think when we sat down, the initial issue, to confront the initial issue, it was to do something. And I always find that better than doing nothing at all, because it's so easy to do nothing at all. We started this curfew initiative September 9th, and it concluded this morning on the initial 30-day operation. And as we came to the end of this month-long curfew, as the county executive mentioned, we had an overall drop of 13% in crime, which was a 24% reduction in violent crime and a 9% reduction in property crime. During the curfew hours, our overall crime dropped 20%, violent crime dropped 38%, carjackings dropped 59%, and our contact shootings, or non-fatal shootings, dropped 56%. And we don't believe that the curfew is any panacea for total resolutions, as I mentioned before. There are many solutions to a problem, and this is one. We believe that the curfew, coupled with engaged parental involvement, community support, and proactive community policing efforts, along with overtime, our traditional investigative strategy and tactics, they've all contributed to the downward trend in the numbers that I just mentioned. And as the county executive said at the initial onset of the press conference, that this provided a reset for parents, for youth, and police alike. And that reset was very valuable because what we saw is an engaged resident, the engaged community, the community leaders, and even our youth. I've said many times before, the majority of our youth are doing exactly what they need to do. They're just living their lives, they're living good, productive lives, going to school, working, just trying to make something of themselves. And then there's a smaller group, who are committing some violent acts, some youth who are out there harming our residents and victimizing some of our residents. And that is where we put our focus. But with that engaged parental effort, the guidance, what we observed was parents who made phone calls, who called 911, talking about the engagement that you heard the county executive speak on earlier. What we found were youth who said, I want to have cooperation. It is easier to have compliance, but cooperation benefits us all in this police-community relationship, this 50-50 partnership that I speak on. And those youth chose to engage us in that way. Those parents chose to engage us by calling, by the community leaders, by noticing things that were brought to their attention, so that the police officers, the men and women who go out and serve every single day, who put their lives on the line to make Prince George's County the safest county in the United States, a better place to live, work, and play for our residents. They go out there every day, and with this combination of individuals, of groups, to come together with one mind and move forward, it was very vital to the success of this program. And what we looked at with the individuals who were arrested, I think it can be said, you save a person from their very own self, that reckless gunplay or carrying guns around. Those are very serious offenses. It's a very serious thing to do. And we found 2 of our youth involved with guns during that time period. And we were able to safely move them to another avenue. And I don't think this is over. Any story that should go on, whether it is extended in the short period of time to the end of the year, is that our mindset has to be a collective and continue to be a collective mindset. Parents have to continually be engaged with their young people, that there is really no reason or rationale for young people to be out so late or in the early morning hours to that nature. There is really a safety protocol to put in place, giving you another tool in the tool chest to actually help your child and help yourself. And we offer that partnership with you. There is more active engagement involved in making our county safer, whether that is violent crime, which we tend to focus on more, or property crime, that we all must be vigilant in making sure that our county stays safe. That means locking your things up. That means locking your cars, that taking your key fobs. That means, don't leave your doors unlocked. Don't, help some people help you become a victim of crime. Do not give them an assist. We are all in public safety together. We work together. We're united in making Prince George's County safe, and we must concentrate on our collective efforts. The county executive mentioned the Cope Collective, and it's groups like that that we should be involved with. But there are many groups and many non-governmental organizations that offer services, that offer something beneficial and positive to the very fabric in which we survive. And we should find groups and engage with positive groups who are interested in making our county, again, better and safer. I'll say, for police, we give fancy names to operations, and we name things, and we go along with our business each day. But we're working, and since last year, since June of last year, when we implemented the first of our initiatives to become a normal way of policing in Prince George's County, we continue to provide those initiatives. And right now, we are in the fall initiative. We'll be coming up on the holiday initiative, and shortly thereafter, the winter initiative. And inside these initiatives are operations such as the curfew operation. Inside these operations will be focus on crime that happens during our holidays when it's a festive environment. During this time, I'll note that I was speaking with a commander earlier this morning just to show you it's at the forefront in the thought process of many young people that a conversation was overheard in one of our business establishments this past weekend about a young lady talking about homecoming, and that she would have to, make sure her plans were right to be home before the curfew. And this showed an engaged young individual. And those are the type of things that our initiative engaged to with people who are in cooperation with us in a 50-50 partnership in a way that displays procedural justice in a professional policing way with the proper community policing and engagement efforts that we tend to do. So I'll say, it is a success whenever you take a youth from an environment and move them in a positive direction. Whenever they offer cooperation, we are in a positive way. Whenever parents are engaged, as they should be, to making sure that Prince George's County is what it says it is, that it is, and for police, men and women who go out in each and every day wanting to make sure that we are safe, that our family members are safe, and that they come home safe, that they're an important part of this solution, which I'll say again, it's easy to state the problems. It's more difficult to give solutions, and we are open to working with anyone who has a positive solution for a positive outcome. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to keep this a little tight, but we'll open it up for questions. Brad.
Madam County Executive, the curfew law has been a law since 1995. Why do you put any time frame on it? Why don't you just say, hey, this is our law, this is our way?
Well, I think that our families want information, especially our parents who are in partnership with us. They want to know whether or not their children are allowed to be outside past 10 o'clock on a weeknight or midnight on a weekend. And so just out of respect for the partnership, we want to continue to communicate with our community what we're doing. And right now, what we're asking parents to do in partnership with us is to be vigilant about keeping your children in the house after 10 p.m. During a school night, by the way, and at midnight on the weekend. So that's why we're announcing time frames. We'll look at this again at the end of the year. We felt it was very important to keep it in place since we are encouraged by the results, at least through the holidays. This is a period where traditionally we might see some additional criminal activity, and just want to make sure that we are keeping this in place now to protect our kids.
Tracy?
So it sounds like you're saying this isn't a permanent solution, but this may be more of a Band-Aid to try and fix part of the problem. You're calling it a tool. What is the permanent solution? What is the hope to fix what you're trying to fix with this?
You know what? I think that's a great question, and the answer is it is evolving. The environment changes all the time. For example, what we've seen in our environment in terms of increasing carjackings and other offenses are different than what we saw a couple of years ago. And so the environment is ever changing. And what we're saying is that we will change with the environment to do whatever is necessary to keep our residents safe. And in this moment, the curfew, because again, the information we had was between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. was when we saw 62% of our carjackings occur. That's a reason that we thought, and they were happening primarily at the hands of young people who were 16 and under, and that's the reason that the curfew made sense for us. If we find that the environment changes and something else is required, we will do that also. So it's not a Band-Aid, but it's just that our strategy, we'll continue to revise the strategy as we see fit. And part of what the curfew does is allows us to gather information. It allows us to see who is in the street after those hours and what we must do to reach those individuals. And so this continues to help us with to gather information so that we can be successful.
And have you all been able to reach out to the individuals who were a problem? Has that happened?
So what we have done is we are in the process of connecting them to the Hope in Action project. So that is something that is an ongoing process. But for children who we recover, we don't just simply send them back home. We actually are offering additional resources, and one of those resources is through the Hope Collective. We announced that earlier in the year, where we have about 16 nonprofit organizations who are working with us to do after-school mentoring, helping us also with violence interrupters and other things. And so this is really a holistic approach to this issue involving our youth.
Now, just want to be clear, nobody was fined at all during this, and are you, again, just to be clear, attributing, I guess, the drop in crime seen in September to basically the kids who were committing these crimes in August being inside in September?
So to answer the first question, we do have individuals who were given warnings. I don't know that it escalated to a fine because the first interaction results in a warning.
Right.
So we do notify those parents. I don't know that we had any repeat offenders, so to speak. It doesn't sound like I don't think we did. These are first interactions, so that's why we did not escalate to fine. I'm sorry, what was the second question?
You mentioned the steep drop in crime, especially during the hours of the curfew.
Mm-hmm.
Are you basically attributing that to the fact that kids who were committing these crimes, say in August, were inside their houses in September?
You know what, honestly, I think it's too early to say. But what we can say is that we had these significant drops in crime. We know that our children were inside. For example, that we had a 59% decline in carjackings between those curfew hours gives us information to say that there is a connection. But after 30 days, I think all of us would agree it's probably premature to say that that was the exact reason, because remember, there are additional things that are happening at the same time in this environment. We have additional overtime. Our department came up with various strategies going into apartment complexes and other places around the county. So it wasn't just the curfew, but when you hear about these activities that the police department has put together, their plans, so these are also happening all at the same time. So give us a little more time. I don't want to say prematurely that this is going to cure it. You know, in other words, what we know is that it's one tool and that we have seen some encouraging signs, and so we're going to continue.
Hi, Dr. So in the tweets that you put out, you identified at least 3 juveniles that were in violation of the curfew. Calling this a success, that do you really believe that there were only those 3 juveniles violating the curfew during that time?
No. I think in a county of 1 million, close to 1 million people, we probably had more, but those were the young people that we interface with. And again, when we say successful, again, this is not mission accomplished. I've been very honest about that, is that we still have a lot of work to do. But we are seeing some encouraging signs, including the declines that we mentioned, the 59% number that we mentioned. There was an overall decline in homicides. We've seen an overall decline for the year, but we saw, especially from August, the numbers that we saw in August, we did see a precipitous 74% decline in homicides during the month of September. So we think that's significant. So we'll add it all together and see what it means. But you're right. I mean, it would be intellectually dishonest for me to say that countywide, in a county close to 1 million people, that there were not more than 4 young people who were out. But those were the ones that we came across who, as was mentioned, were in some peril, had a loaded gun, one had shot himself. And so there was a reason for us to interface. This was never to hunt down kids. never to hunt down kids. That was never the objective. The objective was simply to ask parents to step in and to be responsible for their children, their guardians, the community. This was never about us searching for kids and finding a way to interface with them.
You mentioned that the reason to interface in those three at least that you mentioned. My question is, do you have any concerns about how this is being enforced? Because we are hearing from police officers who are concerned about possibly getting into a confrontation with juveniles or a civil offense because of the use of force change laws that have happened in the state. And so we're not hearing, in at least those three, an example where officers are approaching a crowd of juveniles. We're hearing them in, with another crime that is found that they're in violation.
Well, you bring up a great point, and I'm going to have the chief answer also, but also another really important point is our officers have been given instructions. The instruction is to educate our young people upon the first encounter with them, is to educate the young person and to send them on their way. And Chief, you probably want to say something about that, but it was never our intention to have any sort of aggressive interaction with youth. That would totally be against what we were trying to accomplish.
Let me add on to the first part. Our officers who were out in the county and tasked with making sure that they answered the call or they directly addressed the issue when it came to their attention with young people being out after curfew. Many of those early reports came back that they did not observe youth in the normal places that they would observe them, that they were not there. So what we can say is a behavior was changed or a cooperative effect took place. So those things were not happening. And this was multiple reports from officers who had traversed our county and went to places all over our county that they would normally go to because they know outside of the residents who live in a place, the officers know the terrain very well. They know what's going on. And they came back and they reported to us that that was not in high volume. The second thing is we had our conversations and our meetings with the county executive, meetings with my executive command staff about what our interaction would be. And we wanted to make sure that we did not want to have a confrontational interaction with young people, that we would attempt to gain cooperation from the youth, the futures of tomorrow, who may be out, for a legitimate reason, that it wouldn't result in having that type of engagement. And I can tell you that, to me, that is pleasing. I am delighted to hear that. I'm happy for that there was not a negative confrontation with our young people over a juvenile curfew operation. I'll reiterate that what we gained was cooperation by our young people who engaged with police in a very different way. And oftentimes, it's been an approachment of negativity. And in these particular incidents, the police did what they had to do. The experience, the engagement resulted in a meaningful way without some negative, interaction. Those are important things for us to say or do when it comes to de-escalation or conflict resolution, cooperation, compliance, the parental involvement. All of those things made a difference to us. Again, I'll say this again when we talk about what is success, and I'll use this one thing. When prevention is hard to measure except for the numbers that we tend to look at, and those are fleeting from year to year. When a parent or a family member loses someone to a violent crime, a homicide, and we say, well, homicides are down or they're decreasing this year, those numbers wouldn't mean a great deal to a person who lost someone. So successes are measured that way. We measure them in a more meaningful way. Did the community engage with us? Did they have a positive outcome? Can they contact the police? Did community policing and community engagement go up? Did our non-governmental organizations step up? These are small successes inside of an operation that cannot solely be measured by the limited number of interactions that we had to do or take place. Yes.
Comments for those who have expressed opposition toward the curfew about it, quote unquote, being a way of keeping youth at home, locking them inside the house. Is there any comments for them? And does the department believe any other factors could be contributing to the drop in crime at this time, like end of summer, children going back to school?
Well, I'll say this to, anyone who opposes right or meaningful solutions. My door is always open to solutions, and I'm willing to work in a partnership with any organization, any group of individuals who want the best for Prince George's County, who want it to be safe. Again, I'll state that it's so easy to restate a problem over and over again. A math teacher told me a long time ago, you're spending too much time on the problem, work on the solution. So I would invite anyone to come forward with meaningful solutions that are positive, that we can work together on. I didn't say this was a panacea, a total panacea, and it's not. What it is one way for us to achieve a goal with a tool in the tool chest. And if there are more solutions to achieve that goal, then your Prince George's County Police Department are more than willing to engage with that. The second part is, are there other contributing factors? There are many contributing factors to why crime went down during this period and how we looked at it in the 30 days before, and how we're looking at it to see how we can go forward. When we've mentioned them here before already, it is cooperative youth. It is a more attention to the matter brought on by our county executive. It is a more meaningful dialogue between our other partners inside this delicate criminal justice ecosystem. The waiving of summer into fall, what happened, the more activities in school. I could go on with probably 25 or 30 more variables on why things like this happen. And that forms a fine equilibrium that can go any way on any given day, because the terrain constantly evolves and we have to adapt to the evolution of how things happen in our county, how things happen in our adjacent jurisdictions from DC or Virginia, and how those influence what is happening here. So there are many things that can take place, but I'll tell you, the one thing that we need is that we just need more community and parental involvement, because the police are not the singular source for public safety in the county. We're all in this together.
So last question, Tracy.
Just quickly, when this curfew began, there were concerns about teen carjacking. So how do you account for the homicide rate going down?
Well, one is we had one of the worst August months that we've had in our history, and so when you look at those high volume of numbers that took place then in August, and a more unified, singular, cooperative effort to direct crime reduction during that period of time, I think I've alluded to part of that answer, already. But I attribute a lot of it to a renewed focus attention, a reset, is what the county executive would say. I think all of those things add into a recipe, one ingredient, many ingredients into a recipe that turns out in this range, in this short range of 4 weeks, turned into a positive outcome for us. And that is not over. That's not concluded. Every day is a fight and a battle that we must stay in.
Thank you, everyone, so much.